all over the place. And use these hashtags, you guys. Hashtag Viva Freedom Talk and hashtag Viva Coffee House. Post it everywhere. We want everybody to know what's happening here in Tucson, Arizona, because this is going to be a hub for free speech in the nation. Ladies and gentlemen, Kelly John Walker is an accomplished writer and researcher, including serving as editor-in-chief for a medical and dental journal read by thousands of doctors across the country. He is among the first to write about the emerging novel coronavirus in 2019 and has published several peer-reviewed scholarly articles on COVID-19. But maybe you have personally read one of his posts of this new modern era, like In Defiance of Censorship and Tyranny, or his post on the Declaration of the People's Natural Right. Well, maybe you guys just know him as the co-owner and marketing director of Viva Coffee House here in Tucson, Arizona. However you know him, please help me welcome Kelly Walker.
Thank you, Ryan. Hi. Can you all hear me in the back? Thanks so much for coming. I'm almost, this is blocking my view. Garrett Lewis won't have that problem, but I'm pumped. Thank you all for coming. I moved my family out here in 2017. Been coming out to Tucson for a long time and went to New Mexico State University. Any Aggies out there? One? Okay. We moved here to have a quiet life and be anonymous. That's working out real well. I feel like we're just surrounded by friends here and family. Thank you all for coming. I just want to ask for a round of applause for our security. They've been working really hard. And thank you to King & Gardens for providing this amazing venue. After the speeches, we'll be able to walk around and enjoy the gardens. This is fantastic. So please thank Sheila and her staff here at King & Gardens. So here we are. I'm going to introduce Garrett Lewis to say a few words, and then I'm going to give a few more words, and then Dinesh will give even probably 10 times that amount of words. He's very excited to meet you all. He's very excited to come out here and speak. And you might know about Dinesh that maybe you didn't know, but he first came to the United States as an exchange student, and guess where he came? Patagonia, yeah. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce Garrett Lewis.
Oh, wow. Can you hear me okay? No! All right, maybe to be louder, you let me know. There you go. I blame my parents. 70s and drugs. So, all I want to say, first, thank you guys so much for being here. Thank you for the support. Thank you to Kelly, his wife, King & Gardens, Dinesh, everybody. I mean, this is the security. This is phenomenal. And I also want to say, how great is it to see faces? Is it not phenomenal to see faces? And I never in my life thought I'd be excited to see faces, but I'm actually excited to see faces. So this is fantastic. And especially a radio guy. You know, who wants to see a radio guy's face, right? So, look, I am very excited. It's not very often we get a guy like Dinesh D'Souza to come here to Tucson. So whatever Kelly has on, I don't know. But that's fantastic. And you know what? Dinesh is a fighter. Like, we are done. Are we done with playing nice? Are we done with it? We're done with this. Does anybody here care what anybody else thinks about you? No. Anybody care what the media says? No. You know, this is what's great, because this is inspiring. You see, Dinesh was one of the first. He was out there. He was outspoken. He was criticizing Obama. He was saying what needed to be said. He made Hillary's America. He did so many great things, and he took the slings and arrows, right? And you know, and so did President Trump. He took the slings and arrows too. And then when things got stolen back in November, which we realized that was it. We said, We can't. Yep. We can't go through this again. And and that's why we have to all fight. Whether it's you getting on the phone and calling the school district, and you be mean to them. Be mean. You have to say it. That's the only way they react. Be mean to them. You call up lawmakers. You be mean to them. You say you don't put the mask on the face. You don't do this stuff. And you know what? You go to the next level, which is what we have great people here doing. We have State Senator Kelly Townsend. She doesn't hold back. Right? We have Justine Wadzak, who's running for State Senate LD10. They're taking that fight to the next level, and we can all do that as well. And there's Rachel Jones, who's running for State Rep LD10. These are, you know what? There's the media and the establishment, Republicans and Democrats, they have spent way too long trying to make it complicated. And it's not that complicated. It's simple decisions. Unless you're trying to get rich or get other people rich, it's a simple decision on what needs to be done, right? So, you know what? It's inspired people that are doing it for the right reason. And we need to get behind them and support them. You support the champions. So that's why I'm so glad that we're out here. We have Dinesh out here. He's probably the original fighter like that. He did things that nobody else had the guts to do, and it's inspired all of us, including me, to do this stuff. So I am so excited that I was invited to be here. I'm so glad we were able to promote it. I'm so glad you guys were able to promote this event, support the event, support Kelly. So enough of me talking for once. It's hard for me to put this down, It is so hard for me to put this down. But we need to get Kelly back here, and we need to get the star of the night, who is Dinesh D'Souza. Thank you guys very much. I'll talk to you on Monday.
Thanks, Garrett. I just want to start by saying this event is really about all of you. We've all been through a lot. And when you're sitting in a coffee shop day after day, you hear all the stories, and it builds up, because you hear about the people who've lost their jobs. You hear about the kids who are put on suicide watch because they can't medically tolerate a mask, and so they're ostracized from their peers. And it all gets to be too much. And so, like I said, we wanted to come here. I wanted to have a garden, live a quiet life. We had had struggles with these loony left people in Oregon, believe me. They tried to take me out of my son's life as a father, and that's where I first learned how to fight and not back down. And other fathers would have walked away because they are vicious. But I refused. And sometimes I said, God, why are you allowing this? This is so hard. I love my sons. I can't be ripped out of their lives. And I don't know, he toughened me up. And I think when you go through these things, it builds compassion for those around you. And it is so beautiful to see you all here today. It is so beautiful because so many of us were sitting in our homes watching the fabric of our nation being destroyed, wondering what can we do, feeling alone. I remember those days. I don't even know how our little coffee shop got through it, but people were afraid someone was going to report them for having a few people together. And look at us now. Look at you now. And I'm not a politician. My family isn't political. We just care about people. And that's the strength of this country. And that's something the left will never have. They'll eat their own. But we take care of our own. And so we're here to honor you tonight. And it's just such a blessing to have Dinesh D'Souza here. I want to thank all of our sponsors, first of all. But if you'd rise, please, I'm going to do a Pledge of Allegiance. I don't know that we have a flag here. Look at somebody with a flag on their shirt. Oh, Justine has a flag. Okay. Okay. While she's getting the flag, I'm going to thank our sponsors. Our platinum sponsors, Pivot USA. uprecruit.com, Cares Home Services, who keeps us cool, they work on our industry. Pivot USA, uprecruit.com, and Cares Home Services. Gold sponsors, Arizona Hearth and Grill, that Val guy running around at Elvis, right? Anastasia Satsaki's Realtor. Justine Wattstadt for State Senate. Andres Malo, Realtor. Michael Dorman, AZ Duck Testing, Maggie, Arizona, as she's known. Remodeling by Design, and Cecilia Castillo, Realtor. And we could be here all night because I'm not done yet. In-kind sponsors, KNST AM 790. Thank you, Garrett, for talking up this event. Thomas Promotions. Kingdom Gardens. Motion Music Entertainment. Ryan and his crew. Fantastic people. Luis Angel, who did the designs for us. He's a local designer. And all the way out in Maryland, Hurt Art Studio, someone who's been following our story from Maryland, did the hand-drawn lettering, which you'll find on all the artwork. So it's just fantastic. Also our Viva staff, security team, and volunteers. There are many people here who jumped in and volunteered, and we thank them. Okay, I'll lead you in the Pledge of Allegiance. Actually, Justine, why don't you lead us?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please be seated. I'll wait for this train to go by. How's everyone doing tonight? Is everyone comfortable? Yeah? Good. If you bow your heads, I'm going to give a brief invocation to start things off. Dear God, Father of the universe, we just thank you for bringing these people together. We thank you that no matter what comes against us, you're here with us, and that you're going to be here through everything, through all the trials and tribulations. We don't know exactly where all of this is leading. We have different ideas and thoughts of what could happen, but we know that if we trust in you, we're going to be safe. And we know that in the end, we win. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen. So I usually talk off the cuff, but I actually wrote a little speech. Hopefully this won't come across too stilted, but there were some really important things that I wanted to communicate to you just before we introduce our speaker. Today is a high point in a story that began when our corrupt local government here in Pima County assumed a little coffee shop in Vail would be an easy target. In that, they were greatly mistaken. Had they known their history, this is the last place they would have chosen. Because you might not know it, but the Declaration of Independence was first read to the public in Merchant's Coffee House, and the Sons of Liberty met regularly at the Green Dragon Tavern and Coffee House. We are rediscovering that the soul of this nation resides wherever 2 or 3 people gather in the name of freedom to share a cup. Not in a Capitol building. And we're witnessing a blessed decentralization of power back to the people. Dinesh harkened back to these roots in a recent podcast. He said, the Republic of Letters are people who are not in government, but they are interested in what the government does. They would meet in cafes and they would discuss the issues of the day. They were engaging in a kind of civic discourse with political implications. You could almost say advising power. You've got this intellectual life going on in the community. It's removed from government, but it exercises a moral force on the government. The idea is to improve the moral, but also the political tone of society. And I see this across this country. A friend of mine, Ian Smith, at Attila's Gym in New Jersey. Who's heard of Ian Smith? I have beard envy sometimes. But he and his partner, Frank, stood up and he said, Kelly, we decided from the beginning we're all in and they're going to have to kill us to stop us. And he says we're just too dumb gym owners and look at the impact that they've had. Alexander Solzhenitsyn wrote in the Gulag Archipelago, "A submissive sheep is a find for a wolf. But the wolves are discovering that they have awoken lions. And there are millions of us, and we will never surrender our liberty." When I was being falsely arrested and an officer accused me of resisting, the American spirit manifested itself in me, and I didn't even know what I was saying, but I said, "I'm not resisting, I'm just strong." I really was just trying to get out of being arrested, truthfully. The elite who would seek to rule you have usurped our founders' vision of government, of, for, and by the people. They forget they work for us. We do not work for them. They have built a postmodern leftist orthodoxy bent on despotism and devastation, and throttled the free exchange of ideas through Orwellian censorship and Machiavellian authoritarianism. That means they don't want to hear you say a thing, right? In our public schools, universities, media, and entertainment, we're all very aware of this. And if anybody's not troubled by censorship right now, they do not understand their history. They don't understand where this leads. They've shoved centuries of foundational Western thought and Judeo-Christian wisdom out of the public square in a Marxist cultural purge that threatens the survival of America's hard-won republic, I should say. But we are not going to let that happen. We believe the true American story is more powerful than the lies that have been created to obscure it. We have a story, and it's a good one, and it's a strong one, and it pains us all to see our children buying into lies, believing they live in an oppressive nation when it could not be further from the truth. So we created Freedom Talk to revive the historical role of the local coffee shop, the local business, as a hub for the free exchange of ideas and civic education, particularly in the areas of history, science, theology, and education. And to ad lib a little bit, we've had so many people coming to the coffee shop asking for help. The banner employees, the parents in the school districts, and we will not turn away from anyone who needs help. We're not a wealthy family, not by any means. We came here with next to nothing after what we've been through in Oregon with the custody system. But what we have is resolve, and we care about people. I don't care that I'm up here on the stage. I don't care that our business is getting notoriety. All it does is helps us to help you, because we love this country and we love the people that come in our door. We endeavor to enhance critical thinking skills and restore truth to the great American Republic in our own small way. We're starting a publication, Viva Freedom Talk Monthly. I've started doing some videos. I've done a few with this feisty Greek woman up here. We're doing videos, and I'm going to start a podcast when I can figure out the technology. I might talk to Dinesh about that. By the way, has anybody listened to Dinesh's podcast? Oh, it's awesome. He'll talk more about that, but I feel like I take a class every time I listen to that. We're bringing in speakers. Today, Dinesh D'Souza, amazing guest to have. Guess who else is coming? JP Sears. Woo! Awaken with JP. And then Matthew Lohmeyer, who's a Tucson native, who was a Space Force commander. And I'll tell you a little bit more about him, but he's coming as well. John Witherspoon, one of the founders, said, "A republic once equally poised must either preserve its virtue or lose its liberty, and by some tumultuous revolution either return to its first principles or assume a more unhappy form. It's time to push back against censorship and thought control and build a renaissance of transcendent American ideals till freedom once again rings from the classroom to the living room, all the way to the halls of government." We appreciate our public servants, but they're just that, servants. And by the way, if you're holding an office or you're running for an office, you're expected to help with cleanup and demonstrate servant leadership. I'm not kidding ya. Samuel Adams, who brewed America's second favorite beverage, and I love that beer. People think because we have a large family we're Mormon, and I have some wonderful Mormon friends, but we're not. We have 5 kids. We drink beer and coffee. So Samuel Adams said, "No people will tamely surrender their liberties, nor can any be easily subdued when knowledge is diffused and virtue is preserved. On the contrary, when people are universally ignorant and debauched in their manners, they will sink under their own weight without the weight of foreign invaders." And man, if you talk about something that almost smacks of prophecy, what a thing to say. We're in that place where people are losing their manners, their ignorance reigns. You go in person or online and people can be so vicious. I know Dinesh is one of those who understands that very well. But you know, he's a spicy guy. He doesn't take it sitting down. Very enjoyable to watch him when somebody has the temerity to challenge him on an intellectual matter. In the spirit of restoring knowledge and virtue to our great republic, Viva Freedom Talk is honored to bring a very special guest to you tonight. Dinesh D'Souza is best-selling author and award-winning filmmaker, someone you've all, obviously you know who he is, you're here, right? His political documentaries, 2016 Obama's America and America Imagine a World Without Her, are among the highest-grossing political films of all time. As an immigrant who grew up in Mumbai, India, Dinesh came to the United States in 1978 as an exchange student, just down the road in Patagonia. He attended Dartmouth College, graduating Phi Beta Kappa. He was a domestic policy analyst at the Reagan White House and also a scholar at think tanks such as the American Enterprise Institute and the Hoover Institution at Stanford. Dinesh has written he's written nearly 20 books and has made 5 movies, and I understand he's working on some more, which is intriguing. His latest book, United States of Socialism, was a New York Times bestseller. The film based on that book, Trump Card, was released on video on demand in the fall of 2020. He teamed up with his wife, Debbie, to produce a daily podcast, which debuted in January of 2021 and is part of the Salem Broadcast Network. Let's give a warm Tucson welcome to Mr. Dinesh D'Souza.
Wow, thank you. Thank you very much. Boy, I'm really thrilled to be here. This is a great outdoor setting. I hope you can hear me nicely in the back. Kelly, thank you for bringing me here. I really appreciate it. This was my original stomping ground, I have to say, because when I came to America in 1978 as an exchange student at the age of 17, I arrived in Tucson. And I remember as I walked off the plane, I was thinking, I really hope there's someone here to meet me at the airport. Because if not, I'm not going to know what to do. I lived in Patagonia and Sonoyta, 60 miles down the road toward Mexico, for a year. I went to Patagonia Union High School, and I lived with 4 families. And if you've been down that way, there's a restaurant called the Steakhouse. And I was the Stakeout. The Stakeout, that's it. And I was a waiter there for about 6 months. While I was in class one day, my high school counselor approached me and he asked me if I wanted to, if I thought about going to college in America. And I said, well, no, my parents probably want to send me later on to England, if they can. And, but this guy, he said, look, I'm the high school counselor, but I don't have a whole lot to do. Because he said most of our kids are going to go down to the U of A, some of them aren't going to go to college, so you're my project for the year. And to me, that kind of generosity of spirit, that willingness to help, that's what, to me, America was all about. I saw America from the outside as a foreign student, but I also saw it from the inside living with families. I remember very early on, one of my host families said, we got to take you sightseeing in Arizona. There's a lot to see. Grand Canyon. We're going to take you to Tombstone, Arizona, the site of the gunfight at the OK Corral. And I said, guys, you know, I'd love to do all that, but my idea of sightseeing is to go to a local grocery store because I kind of want to check out 30 different types of cheese and 40 types of ice cream. And I've never forgotten the abundance that America represented to me, even as a teenager. In fact, I have an acquaintance in Mumbai, Bombay, who's been trying to emigrate to America over many years, and the poor guy's never been able to get a visa. I guess I should tell him now, just show up at the border. The gate is open. But I finally said to him, I said, hey, why are you so eager to come to America? He goes, Dinesh, I really want to move to a country where the poor people are fat. And that's the material abundance of America. But over the years, as I lived here, I found that America offered something more than that. That's actually much more profound. And that is not just the chance to have the good life, but more importantly, the chance to be the architect of your own life. In other words, to be in the driver's seat of your own future. America is a country where your destiny isn't given to you, it is constructed by you. And I realized this early on. I realized, wow, I can do stuff with my life in America that I could never do if I had stayed back in India. And this isn't just about India, it would be true just about of anywhere in the world. I sometimes like to think of my career, crazy quilt career though it's been, the Reagan administration, working in think tanks, writing books, making movies. I mean, it would be a really funny sight if at a young age I'd gone to my grandfather and said, well, you know, I'm thinking of making a movie. He would have had my mom take my temperature. I mean, he would have thought there's something wrong with me. Why? Because he would have expected me to live pretty much the same life that my dad lived. He would have expected me to have the same views and become an engineer or a doctor like some of my uncles. In other words, my pathway in life was completely given to me. But in America, I just discovered that we have a life that we get to make for ourselves. And I think this is really why the idea of America is tantalizing to young people everywhere in the world. Now, if I'd given this speech to you 25 years ago in the Reagan era, it would have gone on like this. The greatness of America, the uniqueness of America, American exceptionalism, why I have a patriotic love of America, and so on. But interestingly, in the last few years, I've also experienced another America, the other side of America. I remember this was in New York, standing in a courtroom and hearing a bailiff shout out the following words: United States of America versus Dinesh D'Souza. Whoa. That's not the words any immigrant wants to hear. It's kind of going to send a chill down your spine. And all of this was a culmination of a whole bunch of interesting events, one of which is a whole group of FBI agents showing up at my door, followed by the fact that I'm informed by my attorney that there are a dozen FBI agents assigned to my case. One is going through my bank records, one is reading all my old books. And so you begin to feel, in that circumstance, the full force of the U.S. government against you. And you feel very vulnerable. In my case, by the way, this was all about ostensibly it was about a campaign finance donation. I made $20,000 for a college friend of mine running for the Senate. But of course, the real reason ran a little bit deeper and gives you a clue. It was kind of a preview of what we now see all around us, which is the fact that I had made a film, 2016 Obama's America, that to put it a little bluntly, mightily pissed off the narcissist in the White House, Obama. Now, this was a little bit of a reckless thing to do. Because it wasn't that my film was a critique of Obama. That would have been one thing. But what it was a journey to Hawaii and Indonesia and Kenya, where I went to Obama's family homestead. I wanted to interview his grandmother. Obama, by the way, has 5 grandmothers because his grandfather was a polygamist. So there's only one grandmother alive. And I was like, I want to interview her. And they said, well, you can interview her, but the price of interviewing her is you have to bring her a goat. And so if you watched Obama's America, you'll see me dragging a goat to the Obama family homestead to do my interview. And then in the movie, I also found Obama's brother, George Obama. And this guy was living in a hut. I mean, like, he's a character out of like Slumdog Millionaire. And here was Obama traipsing around the country giving speeches about how we are our brother's keeper. So I thought, this is really cool. Here is his actual brother, and he's living in third world degradation. You have to walk through like muck to, get to the guy's house. And I have this interview with George Obama, in which I ask him, I go, what has Obama done for you? And the guy goes, well, nothing. And so it's the exposing of the hypocrisy of Obama, I think, that really got to him. Because the idea of getting into his family, this was more than an ordinary movie. It was a kind of suppository for Obama, if you know what I mean. And so they unleashed the full force of the U.S. government. Now, I got to say, in fairness, I wasn't like the January 6th guys. I mean, those guys are just vulnerable before the force of the government. I had a really good lawyer. I would go for my court hearings, and I'd go on the Megyn Kelly show that night. In fact, even when I was in confinement, I was locked up overnight for 8 months. Somebody asked me earlier this evening, they go, well, how did you get through it? And I go, well, for me, the whole thing was amusing. It was amusing because I realized I'm going to be in an environment that I never would normally be in under ordinary circumstances. I should consider myself very similar to an anthropologist who is being sent to Papua New Guinea. I need to bring a lot of notebooks, and I need to take notes, and I need to actually come out of it with my eyes open, seeing things that I haven't seen before. And but I would leave the confinement center to go to my court hearing. I'd be on Fox News that night. I'd come back, and all these guards would be like, "Wait a minute, aren't you the guy we just saw on TV?" And so pretty soon they all knew me. They were high-fiving me. All the guys inside knew who I was. The whole thing became really amusing. It was really fun. And you gotta come out of these things ahead, because if you come out, your career's destroyed. You have a hangdog look. Then they go, "We gotcha." Our hit worked. Of course, the crowning exoneration for me was when I was in my office in Houston, and I got a call. I pick up the phone. It's Trump. Wow. He goes, "Hey, Dinesh, I'm here with John Kelly." He goes, "You know John Kelly, don't you?" And I'm like, "No. I know he's the chief of staff, but no, I don't know the guy." And then Trump says, "Let's get to the matter at hand here, Dinesh, your case." He goes, "I knew from day one it was complete bullshit." I was like, And he was going on about it. And there are two things I want to say about this. One is, what I loved about Trump was simply the fact that any president, any Republican president, even Reagan, would have approached my pardon with great caution. They would have brought in a strategic group of advisors. They would have considered the media implications. They would have a statement ready. There would be this and that, focus groups. With Trump, it wasn't like that. It was sort of like this. I knew the whole thing stunk. When I looked at it, I was confirmed in what I thought. I'm in a position to fix it. I'm going to give you a pardon in the morning. That's it. But the great thing was, and this is so strange when you're talking to the president, is he's talking a bit, he's kind of going on a little bit about it, and I realized I wasn't even listening to him. Why? Because in my mind, I was thinking about the implications of what was actually happening, which was actually known by both of us, but brought up by neither. And that was that this pardon wasn't just about like, yeah, I'm going to get my rights back, yeah, I can vote again, yeah, I can own a gun. I mean, I basically get my American dream back, and that's important. But really, just as important, and very well understood by Trump, in pardoning me, he was delivering a giant up yours to the Obama administration. Now, I want to talk about the way in which American politics has become gangsterized. It's very different than it was in the Reagan era. I came of age in the Reagan era. It was kind of a kinder, gentler America. And Reagan represented that. He reflected it. And I remember at one point, this was 1982. I was, in fact, a sophomore at Dartmouth at the time. If you remember, the country had plunged into a deep recession. And Sam Donaldson, who was kind of the Jim Acosta of an earlier day, ABC News, kind of a leftist, very self-important. Reagan had given a speech about economics in which he criticized the economists, he criticized the Democrats. So Sam Donaldson confronts him. He goes, Mr. President, in your speech, you have blamed the Democrats, and you have blamed the economists, and you have blamed the media. Does any of the blame belong to you? And Reagan goes, well, yes, because for many years I used to be a Democrat. And I remember even Sam was sort of carried away by that. He realized, oh man, you kind of got me. And there was that collegiality between them, which you even saw to a degree between Reagan and Tip O'Neill. Now, the Republican Party, which kind of came of age originally in the Reagan era, the modern Republican Party, retains a little bit of that pining for Reagan, retains a little bit of that sense that we want that America back. And we do. However, the question is, what is the way to get it back? What is the way, let's just say, to restore a harmonious community when you've got a bunch of outlaws who have come into a coffee house, come into a bar, come into a restaurant, started pistol whipping everybody who's in there? What is the remedy in that situation? This is, it seems to me, the real question for the Republican Party, for the simple reason that, by and large, Republicans, conservatives, we're the party of the nice guys. We are the party of civility. All these accusations are thrown at us. Even then, we respond with equanimity. We always want to be better than they are. We always want to not respond in kind. We sort of temperamentally don't want to do to them what they do to us. So, for example, they're always talking about backing the court. When we get to power, even if we have all the branches of government, we don't want to back the court. We don't even try. They'll use the deep state against us, the Justice Department, the FBI, and you think we would say, yeah, okay, well, you can try that, but when we're in power, we will militarize the FBI and we'll start arresting you one by one. But we don't want to do it. We don't even think about it. It's not on our agenda. We're not that kind of a person. Now, they know that. They know that we're not like them. And therefore, they are emboldened. They're emboldened because they know that they can deploy all these gangster tactics with no fear that they will ever be themselves vulnerable to those same tactics. This is kind of our conundrum. How do we defeat the bad guys without becoming exactly like them? Without resembling bad guys, without doing things that it is not natural for us to do, and that even if we do them, we're going to do them so reluctantly, so kind of unwillingly, that we're going to do a horrible job in that also. This was the conundrum that faced Abraham Lincoln in the 1850s. Abraham Lincoln, by the way, came out of the, well, I'd have to say out of the rhino wing of the Republican Party. He was kind of a moderate. In fact, he got the nomination because he was viewed as a moderate. The New York Senator Seward had given a speech called The Irrepressible Conflict, basically saying we're going to have to deal with the issue of slavery. It cannot be repressed. It's one way or the other. And all the Republicans went, that guy's a little too extreme. Let's get Lincoln. And so Lincoln is chosen. Lincoln comes in. But Lincoln soon realizes that the Democratic Party in the 1850s has become gangsterized exactly as it is now. And Lincoln realized that all those tactics of civility and argument and compromise aren't going to work all that well. And they certainly aren't going to work well once the Civil War got going. So very early in the war, well, about 1863, about 2 years into the war, the Union Army for the first time deployed black troops. And you might know this, but immediately upon the Union Army's decision to use black soldiers, there was an edict passed in the Confederacy that every black Union soldier captured by the Confederates would be summarily executed. Now, this was not true of white soldiers who would be normal prisoners of war, but it was considered so outrageous, so offensive to deploy black soldiers that if we catch one of them, we're going to shoot him straight. And this then came to the notice or to the desk of Abraham Lincoln, who issued, and we have this scene in the movie Trump Card. You see Abraham Lincoln, kind of old, on a train, and he's signing what historians now call the Order of Retaliation. Order of Retaliation, 1863. And it says, basically, for every black Union soldier captured and shot by the Confederacy, one Confederate captive will be summarily executed. In other words, and you might think today in the abstract, what would cause a man like Lincoln, widely considered to be a decent, a moderate man, why would he issue an order of such barbarity? An order that today would be in violation of the Geneva Convention and all the laws of war. But Lincoln's view was really simple. We have to do to them what they're doing to us. Because if we don't, they will never stop. And so Lincoln goes, do it. And once the Confederates realized that, they in fact withdrew their order, and Lincoln withdrew his, and it did stop, but it stopped because of the willingness of the Republican Party in the early 1860s to show retaliatory backbone. Retaliatory backbone. Now, as we consider what's happened to our country now, we're seeing an assault on basic liberties that we would never have expected even a few years ago, even under Obama. Obama was bad enough. I mean, Obama should be, to understand Obama, you've got to contrast him with Jimmy Carter. Because if you had to award well, not just a 20th century award, but an award in the entire history of the country for presidential nincompoopery, I think Carter's got to be the winner. Why? Because the guy was a complete fool. Every time he tried to achieve a result, his own actions undermined the effort. So a classic example would be Carter comes in, and there's the Shah of Iran. Carter goes, well, you know, I'm a man with a halo. I can't support the Shah of Iran. He's a dictator. He has a secret police. I have no choice. I've got to pull the Persian rug out from under him. Whoops. And the moment he did that, what does he get? Khomeini. So in trying to get rid of the bad guy, he gets the worst guy. Classic nincompoopery. Right? But with Obama, it was completely different. With Obama, if you consider something like the Bergdahl trade, okay, you give us back one left-wing deserter, we'll give you 5 seasoned Taliban commanders. People go, why would he do that? With Obama, it's not like Carter. It's not like Obama's going, oh man, I was really hoping for a red-blooded patriot, the kind of guy who would go get Osama bin Laden. Instead, I got this guy Bergdahl. Oh boy, what a letdown. Obama wanted Bergdahl. He wanted to release the Taliban commanders. He wanted to weaken America. And so all through the Obama years, it's kind of funny because I'd have all my conservative, buddies, but going back to the Reagan years, they were always they were pursuing what I would call the Obama education project. Obama doesn't understand that if you raise tax, you have confiscatory taxes and regulation, the economy is not going to do really well. Obama doesn't understand that we can't let Iran build a nuclear weapon. Obama doesn't understand that if you undermine Mubarak, who's an ally in Egypt, you're going to get the Muslim Brotherhood. Of course, the key point of it is, and these conservatives are always frustrated, Obama's an unbelievable slow learner. We keep pointing out to him that this is not going to work. And it never occurred to these conservatives that they were the real fools, because what they considered working was not what Obama wanted. Obama's goal was to weaken American affluence and power. And that anti-Americanism, which was really a fruit of the Obama years, which I was hopeful would kind of vanish with Obama, is now very visible in the Biden administration. You could almost say that Biden's taking Obama to the next level. And of course, it is not out of the question. People ask me, if Biden is out of it. You watch Biden, it's really clear. This is a guy who's like, he's sitting in the canoe, but he's not steering the canoe. Right? He has this vacant look in his eyes, interrupted by staccato outbursts. Come on, man! And then he returns to the zombified state. So the question becomes, well, who's running the vote?
Obama.
I think it's Obama. It's the Obama officials, but who's the ventriloquist putting the ideas in their ear? Quite likely it is Obama. Now, what the left is doing today, my book is called The United States of Socialism, and socialism in the classic sense was all about economics. That's what Marx really cared about. The rich and the poor, the struggles of the proletariat, the working class guy. And you only have to look at even the people who call themselves socialists today in the Democratic Party, the socialist wing, to realize they don't really sound like Marx at all. Marx would actually find them really surprising. Because first of all, far from trying to champion the working class, they seem to openly have contempt for the working class. Far from trying to get more people to work, the Democrats seem more excited when you don't work. It's sort of like freeloaders of the world unite, not workers of the world unite. Anybody who's a true champion of the working class is not going to want to open up the back gate to let in illegals by the bushel, because the obvious impact of that is going to be to dilute the power, the bargaining power of an ordinary American worker. But that's exactly what's happening now. So the socialism that we're dealing with now is unique. It's new. It's a new stripe of socialism. It's done in the name of race and gender and transgender. And when you think about it, it's a fundamental attack on basic characteristics of nature. It's an attack on what it means to be a human being. And what the left is trying to do is not to persuade us, not to outvote us. I think it's pretty obvious that their goal is to turn us into a captive population. We have a scene in Trump Card. It's taken right out of George Orwell's 1984. There's a very poignant scene toward the end of 1984 where the protagonist is a guy named Winston. He is taken captive by the deep state. The deep state in Orwell's novel is called Big Brother. And they're interrogating him. And they're trying to get him to say that 2 + 2 is 5. And so Winston is like, I'm not going to do it. And they're like, you have to do it. And he's like, no, He says, look, you can do what you want to me. You've like separated me from my family. You've taken all my stuff. You've locked me up. He goes, but I'm still free in my mind. In my mind, I'm still retaining the freedom to say that 2 plus 2 is 4. And so what they do is they say, okay, Winston, and they put him in a dark room, and they sensory deprivation, and no food, no water, and ultimately, he's scared of rats, so they put rats on his face, and ultimately he breaks down. And he goes, okay, I admit it, 2 plus 2 is 5. Can I go now? And this is when the interrogator, a guy named O'Brien, who's representing Big Brother, says, no, Winston, you can't go. Why? Because in your mind, you still believe 2 plus 2 is 4. You're saying it's 5, but you're only saying that because you know that's what we want to hear. But what we want to do is we want ultimately to transform your inner mind as well, so that you believe that 2 plus 2 is 5. You're not just saying it, you believe it. This is tyranny of the worst kind, because this is tyranny that tries to burrow. It's not just about putting on a mask. It's not just about indoctrinating your kids in school. It's ultimately trying to burrow into your very soul. That is the end point of where it all goes. And when we look at other countries, I mean, it's kind of interesting to see the Republicans right now. We stand with Cuba. We stand with the Cuban people. And at one time, again, thinking back to Reagan, we could all be, wow, it's going on over there in Cuba. It's going the Berlin Wall over there in Eastern Europe. Look at what's happening in North Korea, secure in the belief that we don't have to deal with any of that stuff here. But now, incredibly, we do. Suddenly we realize that all these bad things that happen elsewhere in other parts of the world, we are in no way immune from here. And our basic institutions, I'm not even talking about things like the left which control the media, or Hollywood, or even academia. I'm talking about institutions like the medical profession. People with a white coat. Used to be you go to a doctor, they go, you need to take this medication. You would never think of asking, why? You need to have your appendix out. Why? By and large, it's, wow, the doctor says I need to have my appendix out. When can I come in? Let's see if I can come in next Tuesday. So we have this sort of natural institutional trust. The FBI, I remember as, I think it was in my college years, or thereabout, watching The Untouchables. I'm like, wow, the FBI goes after the mafia. These are the good guys. Good guys with badges. Now I look at the FBI and I realize, wow, this is a rogue operation. I mean, it's quite likely that January 6th was instigated by the FBI. And I don't just mean that the FBI infiltrated it, and I mean that it was their idea. It was their idea. Now, if you follow close up the so-called Whitmer kidnapping and assassination plot, it's very obvious that that plot would not have gone forward if it wasn't for the FBI. And at crucial stages, the plotters would say things like, I don't think I'm going to do it. And the FBI guy was like, why not? You got to go ahead. So the FBI is pushing people to do things that they wouldn't ordinarily do. And I thought to myself, this is horrific. This is really bad. And this was going on just a few months ago. Something has gone very wrong with the FBI of late. And then as I began to look into it some more, I realized, you know what? This was actually going on in the early part of the 21st century in the so-called war against terror. In other words, remember every couple of years the FBI would have a press conference and go, we just foiled a really serious plot that was being launched here are a bunch of people who are going to go join Al-Qaeda in Afghanistan or ISIS in Syria. We busted the operation. Thank God for the FBI. And we were all like, thank God for the FBI. It's only now, as information comes out, and you begin to look at these things, that you realize that that's actually not how it went down. How it went down is something more like this. The FBI infiltrates a group. It's some sort of a group of ragtag Islamic teenagers like in the Bronx. And the FBI goes, why don't you guys join ISIS? And these guys say things like this, and this is literally from the transcripts. They go, I can't join ISIS. I don't have a passport. One guy goes, I can't join ISIS. My mom keeps my passport. So the FBI then says, we'll get you a passport. The FBI then puts ideas into their head. Things like, what would the brothers think of you if you didn't take all the steps you could? This guy's like, well, yeah, are you saying that that's what would make me into a real jihadi? Oh, yeah, if you're going to be a real jihadi, man, you got to join ISIS. That's the expression of your jihad. And so this, 19-year-old goes, I guess so. And so the FBI is making logistical organizations, getting them plane tickets, getting their passports, and then they all go to the airport, and boom, they're busted by the FBI. Amazing. Unbelievable work by the FBI. The FBI has foiled a plot that the FBI itself created. In short, these guys would never do it if it wasn't for the FBI in the first place. This is what we're dealing with. And we've got to realize that this crap has been going on for a while. It didn't start yesterday. It started, in fact, under Bush. So, now, the reason that we are in this situation is partly because for many, many years, our side invested wholly in politics, while the left divided its investment into politics and culture. So the left's idea, and this is an idea that goes back to an Italian communist named Gramsci, but it was sort of revived in the 60s, let's take over the schools. Not just the colleges, but the elementary and secondary schools. Let's take over all the institutions of culture. Let's even take over the churches. And don't be content with just one or two institutions. You want to control all of them. So you might think the left would be content. Wow, we got academia, we got the media, we got Hollywood. What else is there? We don't care about the NFL, some bunch of guys running with a ball. But no, they want the NFL. They want the Boy Scouts. They want all of culture to be at their say-so. And ultimately, now we see they're even going after so-called conservative institutions, the police, the military. And it's going to take them a while because they work a little bit at a time. But look at the way that they've basically taken over or captured at least the leadership of the Capitol Police. The Capitol Police right now is basically Nancy Pelosi's private militia. And these guys show up with their testimony, they lie through their teeth, ridiculous stuff. Oh, there were 20 people with MAGA hats using the N-word, calling my mom a whore. Oh, really? Where's the surveillance footage? All of the Capitol is on the video. Let's see it. Let's hear it. It doesn't exist. If it existed, they would have played it. They would have played it at the Trump impeachment, for starters. They don't have it, and if they don't have it, it's because it never happened. Never happened. So it forces us to reconsider, because, one of the slogans I coined in my podcast was defund the Capitol Police. And people go, well, Dinesh, be a little careful because, we're supposed to be for the police. Well, look how clever the left is. They're defund the police, except when they find police who are doing their bidding. They're not for defunding those guys. That guy Fanon is on the cover of Time magazine. He's like a cult hero. What happened to defund the police? So this is how the left is. The same with the military. They'll be anti-military until they have brought the military into full taking a knee. And once every Marine and every Navy SEAL takes a knee, they'll become pro-police. Wait and see. That's how they operate. Now, it was a great mistake, a great error on our side to allow the culture to be so fully taken over by them. Even when I was a student at Dartmouth, it wasn't like that. The culture tilted left, but I mean, even off the top of my head, I could have named 10 conservative professors at Dartmouth. You could talk about issues any way you wanted. There was no such thing as, oh, you're triggering me. None of that. In fact, if they tried to apply that principle to my time at Dartmouth, triggering them was just about all we did all day. I was part of a renegade group of conservatives, and our principle was really simple. Find out what it is that really exasperates the left, really drives them insane, and do that regularly, whatever it is. So triggering was kind of our thing. But now, once you have enough of a monopoly, then you can basically start isolating the resistance and shutting the whole place down, or putting everybody into lockstep, and that's what they're doing now. So my daughter, who actually graduated class of 2017, I sometimes say to her, I say, you're the last person who got a true liberal arts education. But if I had a kid now, I'd have to think twice about sending them. It used to be just send your kid to the best school they could get into. Where else would you go? But not anymore. You have to rethink that whole thing. It's not the same as it used to be. Now, the reason that the left is doing all this censorship is it may seem like that's a mark of their strength, but it's actually a mark of their self-doubt. It's a mark of their self-doubt for the simple reason that if they really thought that they had safely and securely and incontestably won the election, they wouldn't have to shut down conversation about it. They wouldn't try to block audits. They wouldn't try to go after voter integrity laws. The reason that they're doing all that, I mean, imagine if you have a house, you have a maid who comes in once a week, and suddenly you notice that your Rolex watch is gone, stolen. Now, you don't know if the maid took it. You're not going to make any accusation because you don't know. So you say, okay, listen, you know what, I'm not going to say anything, but I'm going to try to put some surveillance cameras in the house just so I can feel more secure that my stuff is not going to be taken. And then the maid goes, why are you installing these surveillance cameras? You're a racist. You're only doing it because I'm from Mexico. Then you go, you took the watch. You're acting like somebody who is trying to prevent measures from stopping future theft. Why would you be so eager to do that? So the left's measures are a sign of their lack of confidence, but they're also a sign of their power. The sign of their power because these digital platforms, when they first came around, they were all about freedom. But it's now really obvious. And in fact, even going back to the Reagan years, we used to think that the purpose of corporations was mainly to make a profit. And if you apply that logic, it seems crazy. Why would Twitter want to throw off influencers? Dinesh, you have 1.7 million followers. You're actually an important figure on Twitter. Why would they want to throw you off? The answer is because they don't care about money at this point. They're driven by ideology. That's what's pushing them. I want to talk for a moment about these woke corporations. Woke corporations. Very important point because, remember, the Republican Party has been the defender of these corporations. Whenever the Carter administration and whenever the Clinton administration wanted to raise all these taxes, Republicans would block it. And these are the very corporations that have now turned on the Republican Party. These are the ones signing long petitions about the Georgia voter integrity law. They're vowing to pull their business from Georgia. They're using their economic leverage against us. And the question becomes, what's really going on here? And even more important, what can we actually do about any of this? So let's focus on this for a minute, because there are a handful of these corporations whose leaders are truly on the left. And this would be true, for example, of like Levi's This is true, for example, of certain activists who run these corporations who are in solidarity with the left. But is that true of Delta Airlines? Is that true of American Airlines? Is that true of all these other corporations that appear to be responding to pressure from the left? How does that pressure get exercised? Well, the left has a trump card, if I can use that term. And what's the trump card? We are going to accuse you of being a racist. That's their trump card. And the corporations are like, they will pay, they will jump, they will have emergency meetings, they will basically pay any price to avoid that accusation. The accusation generically of bigotry. Now, on the conservative side, there's no equivalent accusation like that. You can say things like, I'll cancel my subscription to Disney Plus, or I won't shop at Target, but that just doesn't have the same kind of ring. It doesn't even have the same kind of effect. First of all, I have all these people who tell me things like, I haven't shopped in Target for 3 years. And I'm like, oh, interesting, have you let them know? Oh, no, I just don't go. I'm like, what kind of pressure is that going to exert? Do they know you by name? Oh wow, we haven't seen Kelly Walker in Target lately. This is bad. We shouldn't have these transgender bathrooms. Kelly isn't coming by anymore. No, they don't care. You cancel your Disney Plus subscription, they don't care. So you have to ask yourself something else. How do we get their attention? How do I, the ordinary citizen, how can I actually make a difference here? And I want to answer this question by actually talking about a true incident that happened to me a few years ago that I think, if you think it through, fully shows you the way forward on these issues. Shows actually what you can do. So I flash back to 2014, 2015. I'd released a film, my movie America, and I published an accompanying book called America, Imagine a World Without Her. So I'm getting ready for my book tour, and I get a call from a guy I know. His name is Jerry Corsi. He writes for a fairly obscure website called WorldNet Daily. He goes, hey Dinesh, he goes, do you realize that Costco, this is the corporate giant Costco, has pulled all your books from its shelves? And I said, oh Jerry, I said, there are a lot of, Costco's like Starbucks. You've got all kinds of kooks working there. Probably some guy didn't like my book, so he's turned all the copies over, or he's moved it to a back room. This kind of thing happens every now and then. He goes, oh no, Dinesh, it's not that at all. Your book has been pulled from every Costco in the United States. So I thought to myself, that's odd, because, Costco doesn't stock that many books, but they do stock mine. And they sell well in Costco, so Costco chose to order the book. They didn't have to order it. There's no obligation to order my books, but Costco ordered it. And then I thought, if they pulled it in every Costco, that decision must have come from the very top. Someone at the most senior level made that decision. Now, how does that happen? How can it happen that a corporation orders a guy's book and then really literally around the time of the 4th of July pulls it? Well, the answer is something like this. The head of Costco, a guy named Craig Jelinek, is a big Obama guy. And so what happened is some Obama crony, someone like a Rahm Emanuel type, obviously walked into some Costco, let's say to the Costco in Chicago, and he sees my book, and he goes, what the hell? And so he knows that the head of Costco, so he calls the guy up, and he goes, hey, why are you stocking Dinesh's book? And Craig Jelinek thinks, I want to keep the Obamas happy. Oh, man. And so he decides, pull the book. So this is real power. This is how power is exercised behind closed doors. Somebody makes the phone call, and they pull the book. Now, this guy, Jerry Corsi, writes an article on WorldNet Daily, and there's a firestorm of anger. People are like, what the heck? This book is a celebration of America. It's come out around the 4th of July. Why would they do this? And Costco sucks, and I'm going to cut up my Costco card. But all of this is occurring on a right-wing website called WorldNet Daily. There are about 1,000 people railing on it there. But Costco doesn't care. Why? Because it's some obscure right-wing website. Who cares? Now, interestingly, what happens is, and this is kind of the critical moment, somebody in that, let's call it an online mob, gets a genius idea. And they go, why are we having this conversation in WorldNet Daily? Why don't we all mosey on over to the Costco site? Yes. So now, this online mob begins to move over to Costco, and it's getting bigger. It's like a snowball. It's collecting more snow. So by the time it gets over to Costco, it's not 1,000 people. It's more like 15,000 people. But still 15,000 people. Costco's a giant multi-billion-dollar worldwide corporation. But here's the key point. Costco does about 1/2 of its entire global business online. And so what happens is these 15,000 people go over to Costco, and let's just say that they decide to ravage and trash the whole site. And I don't mean that they're complaining about censorship in Dinesh's book. They go through every Costco product, every grill, every hamburger, and trash it. Can't eat the hamburgers, the grills suck, all the products suck, the clothes don't fit. And then literally you have tons of people posting photos on the Costco site. Watch me, I'm about to cut off my executive membership. Here we go, chop, chop, chop. And Costco makes thousands of dollars per executive member because you're shopping all the way through the year, you're buying a lot of stuff, you're stocking up. And so this sent a electric shockwave through Costco of a kind I cannot even describe to you because as soon as I learned about it, I get an emergency phone call from Costco saying, we have bought you a first-class round-trip ticket. Please get on the phone, get on the plane, and come to a private meeting with Craig Jelinek, the CEO of Costco. So I walk into the meeting with my partner, Bruce Schooley, who makes movies with me. And I get there, and the first line the guy says out of his mouth is, he goes, "You are destroying Costco." And I kind of look over at Bruce, I'm thinking, I'm destroying this multi-billion-dollar corporation? This is downright awesome. I mean, I'm thinking to myself, I don't say that. But he goes on to explain, and this is actually the inner workings of how this stuff goes. This guy goes, you realize we just cannot afford to have people, these are our own executive members, trashing our company on our own site. He goes, that's like suicide for Costco. He goes, my board is having an emergency meeting right now, and if we don't resolve this matter right now, I'm going to be out at Costco. So I said to him, I said, listen, the reason you're in this mess is you, quite honestly, have pissed off your own customers. You're the worst kind of CEO. You're a disgrace to your own corporation. You've annoyed your own members. Think of the incompetence that it would take to do that. You haven't just annoyed the public. You've chosen your own high-paying customers, and you have antagonized them to the point that even though they love Costco, you're one of the highest-rated companies in the country, there you are, they're cutting up your card. You did that. I didn't do it. You did it. And so he listened to me, and then I shook hands with him, and I left, and then I landed back in San Diego, and I get a call from my publisher. My publisher says, Dinesh, we really don't know what you said to Mr. Jelinek, but they've decided to put all your books back in Costco. In fact, they've just ordered an additional 25,000 copies, and they're telling me that when your movie comes out in 2 weeks, all their normal DVDs are on a big stand, but they're going to build a special standee, which is only going to be for your film. Now, as I look back on that, I draw a couple of lessons from it. One is the great power of, in this case, a small handful of people. I mean, 15,000 people is a lot. It's not that much. It's not that hard to organize, particularly when people are fired up. The second thing to notice is that I didn't actually burn all my bridges with Costco. I didn't say, in fact, some of my film team were like, oh, Dinesh, you got to go to the San Diego Costco. You got to, cut your card and have them all take a photo of you. And I go, I'm not going to do that. Why? Because my goal actually is to get them to turn around. It's not merely to strike a blow against Costco so they'll never do business with me again. It's actually to show them that they made a mistake. And right now, if I have a book out, I'll have a book coming out from Regnery next year. You walk into Costco, you're going to see that book. Why? Because I've got good dealings with Costco. I'm not actually bashing Costco. Costco made a major U-turn. But the key point of it is they didn't make a U-turn because they saw the light. They didn't make a U-turn because someone said, why are we kowtowing to Obama? They wanted to kowtow to Obama. But there's one thing that mattered more to Craig Jelinek than Obama, and that is the job of Craig Jelinek. He cared more about that. He's like, take a hike, Obama. I'm going to put this guy's book back. Because our side, not really through any great organizational skill, but almost accidentally, applied pressure where it counted. So the thing to remember is that if you think about what can I do, there are lots of things we can do, but the only things that work are when you put yourself in the place of the other guy and ask yourself, what is the kind of pressure that I can apply that will actually make a difference? The website thing is kind of a pretty illuminating idea for the simple reason that all these major corporations, think of Amazon. Amazon lives off of reviews. The products on Amazon live off of reviews. If you're checking out something, I'm looking at a new type of razor because it's supposed to be awesome to do electric shaving, you're going to read reviews. The ordinary consumer has a lot of power over those reviews. So what I'm getting at here is that as citizens and as influencers, we've always got to ask, how do we maximize our leverage? Don't fight battles that you can't win. Don't fight those battles. A really good example, there's a guy who, Bill Mitchell, a friend of mine who was on Twitter. And this guy was like raging over hydroxychloroquine, hashtag HCQ, and he got thrown off Twitter. Now this guy was like a major figure on Twitter. He was like a Twitter influencer. And then he migrated over to Parler, where he created a little bit of a stir, but when Parler went down, basically, you don't hear very much about Bill Mitchell. And I saw an interesting post he did on Parler. He said, he goes, I really screwed up. He goes, because I forgot that I was playing on their playground. And so here I was, I'm not a doctor, I'm not an expert in hydroxychloroquine, I just did hashtag HCQ, and essentially, they vaporized me. That's it. And as a result, I now can't fight the next battle, because I've been, in a sense, disarmed in terms of my access to the public square. This is a constant, even on my podcast, I'm doing a daily podcast, and I do everything I can to push the envelope. I push envelopes. If you watch my podcast, it's kind of funny because my wife Debbie is the producer. She's a little bit more of a traditional Republican. She's hardcore, but her style is a little bit less combative than mine. One of the regular phrases you hear from her in the background as I'm speaking is, oh no. But that being said, I've always got to keep on my horizon, is this going to drop that sword of Damocles on my head, where I'm not on YouTube, I can't post on Twitter, and I can't post on Facebook, I can't post on Instagram, and that means there goes half my audience. And so what I do is I basically say, look, there's nothing I won't cover. I did a long interview with Sidney Powell, for example. But I decided, and I told Sidney, I go, look, we can't post on YouTube. You're banned on YouTube. If I post it, I'll be banned on YouTube. So I'm going to do a full-length interview, an hour long. We're going to post only on Rumble, which is a safe platform, and I'm going to link to that on all the other platforms, because nobody can censor you for what you've posted on another platform. So you do an end run by posting on a safe platform, and then you link on all the others. But all of this is a way of saying, this is a very bad situation to be in, But who's responsible for it? Our own side. We had a window in which we could have pulled their Section 230 protection. We didn't do it. We didn't do it. When people think back to Trump, and I'm, of course, I'm a super fan of Trump. Obviously, I'm grateful to Trump. But it's almost looking back to Trump, far from being this kind of maniac that everybody said, who was sort of overreacting and sort of violating all the rules. When we look back, Trump grossly underestimated the seriousness of the deep state threat. I mean, think about it. Here's Trump, and I don't blame him for this. He appoints Sessions. Sessions appeared a completely safe choice, a really good guy. Wow, Sessions was really going to show him, head of the Justice Department. Unbelievably, the guy goes Rip Van Winkle on us. He goes to sleep for like 3 years. He does nothing. But then he leaves. And you would think at that point that Trump would go, man, I have not controlled my Justice Department for 3 out of my 4 years. I'm going to bring in someone who is so downright insane. I mean, I'm going to bring in like Luca Brasi. I'm going to bring in some guy who's going to put all these people at the bottom of the ocean. I'm going to bring in someone that I can trust 100%. My wingman, to quote Eric Holder, talking about Obama. But no. We bring in this guy, Bill Barr, and he's better than Sessions, at least at the beginning. And then at the critical moment, he turns around, knifes Trump in the back. And so you have to say, wow. I mean, this whole operation could only be sustained during the Trump years with Trump's consent. If Trump had fired Comey on day one, that would have been the end of Comey. So when we look back on it, it's almost as if all of this is worse than we thought. One of the great achievements of Trump was to bring it all to light. Bringing it to light is something that doesn't happen. It's happening for us almost accidentally. Think, for example, about critical race theory. The simple fact of it is a lot of parents had no idea of the level of sheer indoctrination that was going on in the classroom. One of the silver linings of COVID is that you're walking across little Johnny's room and you hear something, you're like, wait, what did I hear? Let me look in there. Online education. What are they saying? What? And suddenly as parents you're like, oh my God, I need to mobilize. I need to organize. But you wouldn't have known had all of this not been going on at home. Now, the really good news is that if we set our hands to the wheel seriously, we can put all of this to a stop. It's going to take some time. We have to do a lot of work. We have to build our own online platforms that are so impregnable that they can't take them down. We're doing it, but it's going to take a little time. We've got to make our own movies. We've got to create our own entertainment. And it may be that we're going to have to educate our own children directly. Yep. We're going to need our own comedians. We're going to need need to create our own America inside of America. Now, Republicans in general don't like to think this way. They think, well, no, we're gonna come together again. Notice all this rhetoric. The Democrats do it. I don't blame them, but we do it too. We use the term we. But you got to think about it that even on basic issues, let's talk about, for example, our American flag. Well, I'm not sure we have an American flag anymore. It's our flag, but I'm not sure it's their flag. We have a national anthem. Oh, really? It's a national anthem? No, it's our anthem. It's not their anthem. They don't want to sing it. They want to take a knee. We can't make them sing it. So suddenly you realize that the symbols and ideas of America, the very way of life the founders envisioned, has now become, you may say, the special property, not even just of Republicans, but of a group of us that has an allegiance to that America. The left has a very different idea of America. And so, short of civil war, short of official secession, short of those kinds of things, the best thing we can do, seems to me, is we make our own America inside of America, and then we guard that America and we deny entry to them into our America. That's it. And once we set our minds to it, it's not all that difficult to do. It's a lot of work. But once you think through what the work is, it is actually a kind of refounding that is within our grasp. It's kind of a great task, because what we're basically saying is we're going to rebuild America using the exact recipe that the American founders used, but we're going to rebuild that America in a country which officially, at least as far as its current balance of power is, has kind of lost its way. I'll leave you with a story that a professor of mine told me many years ago about the lion tamer and the lion. So think of the lion tamer, this little, kind of thin guy with a little stick, and there's a lion on a pedestal. And the lion tamer twirls the stick, and the lion kind of moves obediently to the twirling of the lion tamer. And now my professor poses an interesting question. Who is in fact more powerful, the lion tamer or the lion? And the answer is the lion. The lion's more powerful. So now you have a puzzle. If the lion is more powerful, why then is the lion so sycophantically and obediently doing the bidding of the lion tamer? Why is the lion allowing the lion tamer to call the shots? And then the answer, of course, comes right to you, and it's very obvious, and it's kind of startling. It's that the lion does not know its own power. The lion thinks that the lion tamer is more powerful. And that's our situation in America today. We all think, oh man, the left has the media. The left has the university. They're so powerful. These politicians strutting up and down, they have all the power. But actually they don't. They do have a lot of power. The power on our side is unmobilized. It's latent, but it's not used. And if it's used, it's sometimes not used well. So the first thing we have to do is we have to get our own team in line. We have to get our own team to recognize collectively, together, what we're up against. And this is a tricky job, because it isn't just a matter of finding the rhino Republicans and the establishment Republicans and strafing them. Because the truth of it is, we do in the end need them. It is a wrong idea to think that just by being a populist movement, we're going to take over the country. The American founders had a populist movement behind them, but not a single one of them was an ordinary guy. George Washington was, by some computations, the richest man in America. He had a whiskey business that was evidently hugely profitable. Jefferson, of course, was a Renaissance man and a member of America's elite class. So was Madison in Virginia. And Benjamin Franklin, very successful publisher and diplomat and scientist and inventor. So the truth of it is, we need elites, but we need elites who are on our side. We need elites who are going to respond to what we the people want, to fulfill our aspirations through their capacity. So this is where we need to go. And if we start moving there in an intelligent, brave, concentrated way, there's really nothing that can stop us. They can't stop us. When we really look at their force, think of who makes up their side. Think of the ridiculous individuals. Think of AOC with her enormous eyes as if to say, I was born yesterday. Bumbling Joe Biden, cackling Kamala Harris. Even think of the typical Antifa guy, this kind of ridiculous individual coming out, of mom's basement. Mom, where's my Halloween costume? I gotta go fight Nazis. This is the caliber of people we're up against. Total morons. Total morons. So we are more than a match for them. if we recognize our power, if we recognize that we are the lion, and at the end of the day, they aren't just going to hear us roar, but if they don't respond, we need to be ready to pounce. Thank you very much.
Y'all having fun? I know it's a little warm out here, but how beautiful is this? Wow. Wow. Well, I have a special little gift to give to Dinesh, and we sure appreciate him coming out. I don't know about you guys, but what he said really resonated with me. And it's just amazing, you know, how people all over the country who sometimes aren't even speaking to one another can have the same thoughts and the same motivations, and we're moving together as one. So, Dinesh, if you'd like to come forward, we have a little present here from Marie Welding. She is a photographer and artist, and it'll remind Dinesh and Debbie of their trip out here.
Oh, that's awesome. Wow. Thank you, Kelly. Thank you very much. Wow.
So, real quick, feel free to stay a while. We have some free posters for everybody. If you don't get a poster, let us know and we'll print some more so you can have some later. We have refreshments over in that direction, some Viva drinks. We have a food truck in the back if they haven't left. And we have t-shirts. We've also had souvenir tickets for you. So if you leave without something tonight, just let us know at Viva. We'll make sure you get something. And I just wanted to say I'm about to publish a book called Guidebook for a Son, which I'm really excited about. And I'll give you some more information on that later. And like I said, we've all but signed the contract with J.P. Sears to come out here, which is going to be super fun. And Matthew Lohmeyer, and we're looking into other people like maybe, I don't know, Candace Owen? Would you like to see her? Well, we're working hard on it, and gosh, what a great presentation by Dinesh. Thank you so much. Have a good evening, and thank you so much for coming out.